there, we're gonna go over quick how to write a reflection on your work. So when you are doing this, you need whatever artwork it is that you're gonna be reflecting on. I'm gonna be reflecting on my logo. So it'd be my portfolio logo, your reflection paper to write it out, which has your checklist, and a pencil with an eraser so you can erase. So it is approximately just before 12:15. So we're gonna see how quickly we can do this. All right, so when I'm doing this, I always wanna make sure I have my artwork, or at least a photo of my artwork, accessible so I can always look back on it, use it as a reflection. It does help with that piece a little bit. So kind of bear with me as we go through this. All right, so the process. So I like to start with this. How did you create your work? And this is including a step-by-step, start to finish, like what is it that you did, any challenges that you ran into, and how you overcame them. So I'm gonna write about that and read it to you after. All right, so instead of reading through this section right now, I'm gonna read through it as a whole. I kind of did like a little section as like a little break here because I think that's helpful, not required by any means. So then the meaning, so what we're asking for here is why did you pick the subject you did, or what could it mean to others? So there's always something. Sometimes you pick it just because you like something, but what could it represent? So like sometimes people will look up like, what does a circle represent? What does the color blue represent? What does the color orange represent? What does this shape represent? What does this line work represent? So thinking about those things, so it could be sometimes why you picked something, but it could be unintentional symbolism, which is something that you would look up. So I will write that section here. Again, I'll go through all of that as a whole. I just made myself a little section again, so I know that I'm checking each of these pieces off. So then I have the strengths. So this is when we talk about the elements and principles. What did I demonstrate best, and then why? So describe how I use them in my artwork. So this is when you end up wanting to look at your actual artwork and really analyze your value, your color, your shapes, your line work, your forms, your textures, all those things, but then also variety, unity, emphasis, movement, balance, rhythm, contrast, space usage. All those different things matter when we talk about this stuff. So in this part, for the strengths and for the moving forward, we should be seeing that vocabulary, and the key word in here, and. So you should have an element and you should have a principle, and using that terminology. So I'm actually going to kind of write both of these sections kind of at the same time. I did also have down here, your elements and principles are listed here for your reference, so you can pick that. Definitions are in Google Classroom. I have them displayed in the classroom, so feel free to use those. But strengths, you're talking about which ones you use best, or which ones you think you use best, and then kind of argue why you think that. And then the moving forward part, it's which ones do you think need the most improvement? So describe how you would improve in your work. Now, if your artwork is designed or supposed to be black and white, you wouldn't talk about color being your weakest, because it's not part of the design, right? Now, if you had poor color choice, that's when you would talk about maybe improving color. But the lack of using an element or using a principle isn't necessarily bad. It's kind of all in that intentional piece. So be really analytical with this part, because this is showing more of your knowledge. So you'll see how I do that here. So you'll see when I do these sections here that I underline when I use the actual vocabulary. That helps me confirm that yes, I talk about my principles, and yes, I talk about my elements as well. All right, that is not, again, a requirement. It is a helping you prove that you are actually using that vocabulary. It's a good reminder that you're going through. Some people will list this out. This proves to me that you are actually understanding what needs to happen with it. Okay, so keep that in mind as you move forward. Because reading out loud is important, I'm just gonna read this out loud to you. So when I am reading this on yours, you'll be able to hear there should be some sort of flow, and that will also help make sure that all this stuff is accurate. So I started my portfolio logo by thinking about things that represent me. After I had a list compiled, I did visual brainstorming and practiced a rough draft where I struggled to finalize my idea. I started with my peers I talked with my peers to figure out coloring and line thickness, then transferred my idea to my final portfolio. Okay, yep, definitely talk about the process. Now I'm not going through, or do you talk about literally every single instant? I just need to see that you understand that beginning to end, maybe any challenges that you ran into, because nothing is perfect in art, right? We all struggle, at least in some way, shape, or form. Then we have my final logo represents me through different imagery. I combined my initials, representing me, used a wave to represent swimming and lake time, and created a blend of orange and yellow to look like a sunset. So I talk about why I picked some of those things, whether it was direct or indirect. Whoops. That would be that meaning piece. Now, when I look at my logo as a whole, I see that I used color and value well. So I talk about my elements here. I have contrasting, principle, colors, and values to make sure that the emphasis remains on my initials, not the background. So I talk about those principles and how my elements are being utilized with the principles to create success in my work. So this is focusing on that success piece, right? Things that I did well. And then as I continue to look at my logo and reflect on the process, I would like to work on improving or changing the texture element to be smoother and flatter by increasing the layers of colored pencils. It is slight, but I also think that my overall balance is off. I would like to revisit my location of the initials in the circle, or even how they blend. Okay, so it can be a slight change, but we always have room for improvement. And if you ever say that you don't think you have room for improvement, you got another thing coming to you, because we always have room for improvement, but there's always room for growth. So make sure that you're even thinking about some of those slight things, even if you absolutely love your work. I love a lot of my work. I also hate a lot of my work, but it's also part of that reflective piece on how can you improve. All right, so this is the teacher score. Note that this is how I am grading. So that is for your reference, but please do not mark it. That is for me to do. All right, so it is 12:35. So that means it took me 20 minutes, and that is including me doing the recording, like explaining each of the sections. And I had another teacher come in and we had to have a quick little couple-minute conversation. So very doable to write a full reflection in a reasonable amount of time. Once again, the focus of this is, do you actually understand what's going on? That's what this is proving to me, is do you understand? I do not grade off of length. It's not quantity, it is quality, right? Is it superior? Is it above and beyond? Do you actually talk in depth about each of the things? Or, is it satisfactory? Did you talk about everything, but maybe not as in depth or not super high knowledge demonstrated? The developing would be that you're missing stuff. Maybe you didn't even talk about all the sections. Maybe you listed your principles and your elements and you didn't describe them. And then low progress, that doesn't happen very often, but it is possible. So that would be, literally, I can't understand this stuff. So make sure, read it out loud to somebody else, because it does make a difference. I do catch a lot of my own personal errors when I go through and I read it out loud. So pencils are good, but read it out loud or have somebody else read it out loud too, and then that does help. So good luck.